Welcome to Cosmic Diaries. This is Priya Kale, and here's an overview for the Saturn Uranus squares that are active over the course of 2021. And Saturn will make three squares to Uranus, one on the 17th of February, the second on the 14th of June, and finally on the 24th of December. So I will be making individual videos as well, covering the individual transits and getting into the individual charts. Oh my God. But I thought I'd do a quick overview for the overall transits, and then I'll have the individual charts up on my patron only page. So if you're interested, do sign up there. I'll have more details in the links below, or sign up at cosmicdiaries.com for my newsletter. So all the information is in one place there. I'll send out a newsletter weekly for all updates. But coming back to this transit and this series of squares that are unfolding over 2021, this is coloring the whole year. And essentially, I'm recording this now just at the time of the Leo full moon, just after the Leo full moon. Mercury is about to station retrograde. So it's the 29th of January. But the first square takes place on the 17th of February, which will be days before Mercury stations direct again on the 20th of February. So this period now, as Mercury stations retrograde, and you move to this first square, we move to this first square, this is a chance to really get your ducks in a row, because that we're already, over the past 2 weeks of January, we've been entering new territory, and there have been events that have been developing and that are now coming to light with this full moon in Leo. I mean, depending on when you're watching this, it would help to look at what was unfolding at the time of the Leo full moon around the 28th of January 2021. And in the days that followed, because as Mercury stations retrograde and we move through these first 20 days of February, 17 days of February till this first square, it's a chance to get your ducks in a row and to really get organized, in a sense, which is going to be a challenge in itself, because there's the stellium of planets that are gathering in Aquarius now, and there's a sense, wherever you have Aquarius in your chart, the energy is buzzing. And with Mercury retrograde now in Aquarius, a lot is up in the air. So it will require patience and detachment as you move through this Mercury retrograde. But let's start with this. Let's just jump into the Saturn-Uranus square overview. If you think about Saturn, Saturn is the planet of limits, boundaries. Limitations are mortal limits, in a sense. It represents our mortality. It represents a gateway. And Saturn, as I've mentioned before, asks for maturity, it asks for responsibility. It's about mastery. So wherever you have Aquarius in your chart, over the course of the next 2.5 years, as Saturn moves through Aquarius, this is a chance, you're laying the foundation for that area of your life, and this is a chance for mastery in that area of your life. And now with Saturn making three squares to Uranus over the course of the year, if Saturn is the planet of limits and boundaries, Uranus is the planet that is a revolutionary planet, and it's very revolutionary energy. It breaks through boundaries. It breaks limitations. It takes you beyond known limits. Astronomically speaking, and if you think of even astrologically speaking, there was a time when Saturn is the last planet that we can see with the naked eye, the furthest planet that we can see with the naked eye. And so in traditional astrology, or even in Jyotish and Vedic astrology, we only work with planets up until Saturn, and then the nodes of the moon, Rahu, Ketu. But Uranus was the first planet that was discovered with the help of a telescope. So its energy is similarly innovative, and it it expands consciousness to new limits where beyond known limits or what we thought were the limits. So a square aspect between these two planets, I'm I'm going to take it step by step. A square aspect is a 90-degree angle, and 90-degree angle squares will create tension between two planets. Wherever you have, now Uranus is in Taurus and Saturn is in Aquarius. So wherever you have Taurus and Aquarius in your chart, there is, over the course of the year, this is a major turning point. Taurus and Aquarius are both fixed signs. So what's shifting now, these are tangible shifts. This is not just an idea of something changing, but these are very tangible shifts that are taking place in your world and in certain areas of your life. So awareness is called for. Also, with squares, the thing is that it's a 90-degree angle, so we are turning a corner, but there's many ways to look at it. You can't turn, you don't know what's beyond a corner until you turn it. So it requires that level of, if confidence, if you will, that no matter what's around that corner, you can deal with it. Or then at least a level of awareness that, okay, I'm turning a corner, I don't know what's beyond it, but if I'm conscious and aware, then I'll be best able to deal with it. Because the thing is, one way or the other, that's the way forward. So it's not like you can avoid what's unfolding now. It's happening. The other thing with squares is squares are, the best way to resolve squares is to resolve the energy internally rather than project it out into the world and create it out into the world. Because on the deepest level, this world is a projection. It's a projection, and ultimately the only reality or the only permanent reality is consciousness, pure consciousness. Everything else that manifests into this physical plane is transient. So with Saturn, especially, and Uranus, it's what's unfolding now is stretching your limits, and it's, in one sense, it's almost stretching the limits of your, stretching of the limits of your mortality sounds wrong, but so this is an afterthought, but it's important. So I thought I should add and say it doesn't sound wrong, because with Saturn Uranus square on a global collective scale, we're going to see advances in technology and science and physics and groundbreaking developments in medical and genetic science fields. I don't even have the words for it, but that stretches our understanding of reality. That's, could be mind-blowing in terms of how we understand our reality and the laws of physics. Or there could be developments taking place in the genetic field that, raises ethical questions about our humanity and what it means to be human, and whether we should be making certain choices. Or in terms of life expectancy, we are mortal. This is a mortal plane. Our conscious is infinite and eternal consciousness, but the physical human body is not meant. I mean, those are the ethical questions that might be arising now. It's about the quality of life rather than the longevity of life, really. And then if you think of yogis and sadhus, they've lived past 100 years. The human body is supposed to be able to really live at least 108 years if we feed it well and if we take care of it. And yogis try to extend their lifespan because they want to achieve liberation or in this lifetime and not keep coming back into the eternal cycle of life and death. So birth and death, rather. Anyway, I'm running off too far ahead, but this is significant, these are some of the things that are unfolding on a collective scale, and perhaps even personally, some of the questions that are arising, ethical questions of humanity. And that's why our integrity is important, and knowing where you stand, and what limits you want to push through and what limits you will not cross. And that depends on your integrity and your values. And same goes for our personal relationships. I've said this ahead in the video, so I don't want to go on about it too much here. But even in terms of relationships, even in the best relationships, everybody dies one day. We don't know how long we have with each other. What matters is the love that we share and the exchanges that we have in the time that we have together. And with Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus, the way to deepen bonds and deepen connections now is through freedom and acceptance of ourselves, and offering others freedom to be themselves and acceptance to be themselves. And greater self-acceptance of yourself and recognizing your worth. And then, then you can deepen bonds, and relationships can grow and blossom rather than trying to fit them into a cage. Because all of us, we're not static beings. We're always evolving in consciousness. You are in essence the same consciousness. I mean, you are in essence you're not the same person you were when you were 5 years old. You're not even the same person you were a year ago. But there is an essence, an unchanging part of you that's constant. So it's a matter of tapping into that, going deeper within to tap into that unchanging essence, and then finding a way to liberate yourself from physical limitations. And so when it comes to love and relationships, the more love and acceptance and freedom you can offer others, you can deepen bonds that blossom and grow and flourish, and help you to blossom and grow and flourish and bring out the best in you. So anyway, I'm going to stop there now, continue on to the video. There is, the deeper you dig now, it's like you're being asked to dig deeper within yourself for resources within yourself. And you're discovering parts of yourself that are almost superhuman in a way. And what is that superhuman part of you? That's the part of you that's just pure consciousness. And yes, there is something within you that's superhuman, and it is your pure consciousness. So the deeper inward you can go with this energy, the more there can be a sense of giving way and of recognizing that you're breaking free of old patterns in places where you've previously perhaps felt stuck. But okay, there's things that I want to say, so I don't go off too far on a tangent. So at the time of the first square, both Saturn and Uranus will be direct. And this is a sense, of course, this is an opening of the gates to what's unfolding over the course of the year. At the time of the second square, Saturn will be retrograde, Uranus will be direct. And now there's a sense that it's more of recognizing where perhaps you need to take down some walls, or at least readjust boundaries and limits so you can actually make progress. And this is an inner restructuring. The entire thing is an inner restructuring of how you see the world, really, or how you see your world and how you go about your world, where you don't need to argue for your own limitations now. And just because things were done a certain way in the past, we're through the past now. This is no longer, the past is past. We're in entirely new territory, And again, Saturn Uranus square is a process of stretching our limits, stretching our boundaries. And this is happening with Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is the planet of boundaries and limitations, but it's also uh, the planet of that represents the physical material plane. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius. So it's what binds us, and that's our humanity. So with Aquarius, this is certainly happening on a very collective scale where the world is changing and you're having to find your role within it. And with Saturn in Aquarius, it will call for humility, especially wherever you have Aquarius in your chart. It will require humility now to play your part and do your part, but then to have the confidence and to be able to stand true in your integrity, even in the face of opposition, or, you know, to not blindly follow the crowd, and to know where you stand, to know where your bottom line is. Because Aquarius, as much as it's the sign of the collective, it's also the sign of the individual. So there is this dynamic that's coming in underway with Saturn and Aquarius, wherever that is for you, where you're going to have to find grounding and know where you stand. Then, as with the Uranus in Taurus squares, look at where you have Taurus in your chart, and there's a sense of having to, once again, Taurus is a sign that likes stability, and Taurus does not like change. Taurus is a sign that rules. It represents nature in its rawest, naturalist form. And nature has its own rhythms, and nature has its own seasons, and these seasons, with Taurus, we learn, as much as Taurus likes what's constant, the Taurus Scorpio axis teaches us change is the only constant. And the only thing with Taurus is, at least as are the seasons, the change happens very slowly, where it's almost unseen, where you almost don't notice it. But now with Uranus and Taurus, Uranus is all about sudden and unexpected developments. Uranus energy is like lightning. And yes, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, but Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So there's a symbiosis that's happening here, in one sense, with Saturn and Aquarius. But coming back to Uranus and Taurus, what I'm trying to say is, with Uranus and Taurus now, the changes that are taking place are sudden. And it's almost like an earthquake that, upsets everything. Now, I don't want to predict earthquakes, although, these things can happen. But on a personal level, wherever you have Taurus in your chart, there are unexpected developments unfolding that are pushing you past your comfort zone. But now the whole point of us, trying to study astrology or work with astrology, is to understand what's unfolding on a different level, so you can harness this energy constructively. Because what's unfolding really now is offering a chance for a breakthrough, and it's opening up doors where you previously may have felt like a door was closed, or it's allowing you to enter new territory where perhaps in the past you could not enter for whatever reason, metaphorically or literally. Could be emotional boundaries or literal physical boundaries that are opening up for you, and physical doors and opportunities that are opening up for you. But it will, on the most personal level, it comes back to you and your ability to see the potential in circumstances. And again, to harness it constructively, even where it feels like something's falling apart, It's more of a breakdown to a breakthrough. Uranus and Taurus, I've written about this before. I should try and find the link when Uranus enter Taurus. But it's like shaking the tree where anything that's not firmly attached in in solid values is likely to fall apart. And again, that's what's transient, right? Taurus represents physical energy and material energy. It's money, it's your resources, it's your income, but it's also, your relationships and your commitments. And everything physical is transient. Even relationships, the people you love die. What matters are, the love. What matters is the love you've shared and the exchanges that you have with others in your life. And money is not the root of all evil. Money can do a lot of good in the world. What matters is how you obtain that money and how you use that money. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a good life, but recognize, again, money is just energy. And Taurus, yes, it rules money, but Taurus rules self-esteem and self-worth. It really represents worth. So if you really think about it, money is nothing but printed paper. Or as my guru, Sri Karuna Mayama, she says, children don't run after printed paper. It's true, because at the end of the day, if you really, really, really look at it, it's nothing but a piece of paper. But we've collectively attached a certain amount of value to this printed paper. And then we all abide by these collective rules, this Saturn in Aquarius. And it's interesting, I am saying this as the Leo full moon alliance, and I don't even necessarily follow the news in depth, but I see what's happening with the stock markets, and it's very relevant to what's unfolding in the world over the course of the year. Saturn in Aquarius is the great equalizer. So we're learning that, the same, we're all equal as far as Saturn is concerned. And Saturn is the god of time, and nothing is greater than time. So Saturn is Kal. But we're learning that it's a great equalizing force, and that with Uranus and Taurus, this is coming up financially as well. But as the world changes, and as your world changes, and as things are equalized, then it's also a matter of taking responsibility. And because then you can't keep blaming the world for your misfortune. So now this is, as the year unfolds, this is a chance for you to really take responsibility in the area of your life ruled by Aquarius, and be willing to push past your comfort zone and dig deeper for what you value in the area of your life ruled by Taurus. And let go of superficial attachments. It's about your presence. We don't know how long we have with anyone in our life. With Saturn, and if Saturn represents our mortality, or if Taurus is the sign that represents fertility and life itself, these are both fixed signs. The other two fixed signs are Leo, where we have the full moon right now, and then Scorpio. The fixed signs are the cross of matter. They root us in this material world, but they also remind us that this material plane is just a plane that we're passing through, and all that is born must die in terms of physical form. Only consciousness survives. So it's a matter now of you expanding your consciousness and recognizing your power to shape your reality. And if I think of this as a potter's wheel, you have to center the energy. So it's a process of centering yourself as well now, where you have sorry, your thought came through and flew out just like that. uh, so yeah, it's a level of, the more you can accept circumstances as they are, even the parts that you don't like, and that's important. Even the things that, because this is a restructuring, and inner restructuring as well, like wherever, if something is upsetting you, that's really a chance to go inward and to look at where you feel limited by circumstances and where you can break through certain things. Because Saturn in Aquarius is going to ask that you, again, be true to yourself above all. Even if the world, even if it means standing alone, not rebellion for the sake of it, but because that's where you stand, and that's true for you. It's important that you know that, because otherwise it could be easy to get swept away in the wind and get trampled, when the wind blows the other way. And the more you can find acceptance for your circumstances, you can find the power to really change things as well. Now, and then it's about not needing validation for your existence and for your being, really. I'm just trying to look at this and see if I want to say more about this overview. Okay, so I will say this. As the first square aligns, a few things that I just want to touch upon about the 3 charts, and then I'll stop, and then I'm going to make individual videos, and I'm going to try to run through the 12 signs as well. So those will be up on my Patreon only page. So patreon.com/Cosmic Diaries is where you'll find it. But cosmicdiaries.com is the newsletter where I'll just have all the information. I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but it's like I keep forgetting it. So, and I'm not good at this, so I have to remind myself to do it. But touching on these 3 charts really quickly, what's interesting is this first chart on February 17th. What happens is, first of all, there's something called Kal Sarpa, Kal Amrita Yoga in Jyotish, and that's when all the planets are between the nodes. And I'll get into this more when I do the individual videos, but that's what's going on in the first, at the time of the first transit on the 17th of February. And what's interesting is at that time, of course, we have a stellium of planets in Aquarius, and the sun will be at 29 degrees of Aquarius. Aside from, of course, the moon is exactly conjunct Uranus, so the 2 lights in the sky are very active and very activated as well in the first chart. So expect that this is something that's going to be, unfolding on a collective level, but also that's going to affect each and every one of us individually. However that develops, and wherever your chart is, wherever this plays out in your chart. And then what's interesting is then by the time of and in the first chart, both Saturn and Uranus are direct. In the second chart, or the time of the second transit on the 14th of June, Saturn is retrograde, Uranus is direct. And then at the time of the third transit, Saturn is direct, Uranus is retrograde. So coming back to the second square, by the time of the second square, Jupiter will be in Pisces as well. So that's an interesting peek into, because Jupiter will be in Pisces between May and July this year. So, and then Jupiter will re-enter Pisces by the end of 2021. And then 2022, Jupiter will be in Pisces. So this second square really is kind of giving us a glimpse into what's to come over 2022 as well. A glimpse around the corner, if you will. But then by the time of the third square, what's interesting is, well, there's a lot that's going on, and that's interesting, but a couple of the things that jump out to me is that Jupiter will be at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So Jupiter will have returned to Aquarius after being in Pisces, and then will station direct again and be just about ready to re-enter Pisces by the time of the third square. And that square, of course, takes place on Christmas Eve, 24th of December, so expect an eventful day. Um, and an eventful Christmas Eve. So with Jupiter 29 Aquarius, there's a sense that what unfolds at the time of the first square on the 17th of February, just magnifies, and we're finally, it's almost like if you're not, there's a need for awareness, especially as the aspects align, and I'll get into this with the individual forecast, but otherwise it could feel like you've been running to stand still. So, but if you're working with this energy consciously, then you can really shape something now, so that by the time of the third square, you're ready to take that big step and big leap forward into the future, and into a future that you've been building and you've been reconstructing and, shaping over the course of this year. So this year really is a sort of a transition. And with Jupiter entering Pisces, this at the time of the second square in the summer, there's a sense of, recognizing how much infinite potential there is. And as you do, we're going to have to come back and make adjustments and make room for this growth and make room for these adjustments where, things are opening up with the first square, but by the time of the second square, it's like, wow, there's so much more even. So, or there's so much more potential than you even thought before. So now by the time of, as we move through the second half of 2021, then there's again, readjustment leading up to Uranus square Saturn number 3, when we'll be ready to take that big leap forward. I don't even know if that made much sense, but I hope it did. And I hope this was helpful. I've gone on for quite a while, but yeah, I hope this was helpful. And I'll definitely I want to get into the individual charts because it's so interesting what's going on. And I'll get into individual forecasts for the 12 signs as well. So more soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy these. Do let me know what you think, and if there's something you want to see, email me and I'll do it. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now. Happy full moon.